welcome to this Shepherd Update. I'm Zach Strickland here with Chief Economist Anthony Smith. Anthony, I see you got some housing in your index back behind me. Tell me what we got.
That's right. So we have housing starts that just got updated this morning. We were talking about it a little bit yesterday as the premier release of the week. And so we got housing starts, came out just this morning. We saw that there was another increase for housing starts. So a lot of big headlines were surprised that there was a bump up. I wasn't too shocked by this. The thing that I think was more surprising was that it was such a small bump up. I mean, we are seeing a lot of underlying trends here within housing and construction. This was up 0.3% for overall starts, which is pretty decent during this time of the year. It's still not quite the the warm spring, summer months. And we were talking about it a little bit earlier on last month and the month before that a potential pull forward happening with a lot of anticipation with increased interest or mortgage rates from effect of interest rates going up as well. So we're looking at mortgage rates. We are indeed seeing that up just over 5%, I believe. Yeah. And so that's going to be one of those things where consumers are anticipating this is going to keep going up. Let's pull forward before they go up any higher. So that's going to be another one to watch closely.
Yeah. So I mean, we've talked about permits because the permits have been sitting there, and a lot of these builders have been waiting on these materials. I mean, we see you've got the flatbed tender rejection index there that shows you that capacity for flatbed is limited, more so than the other two modes at this point in time specifically. So when we have all these outstanding permits, all this, these builders have been getting these permits generated. They're trying to get these things built before that consumer demand wanes, am I right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, they're looking to get these homes up. They're looking to get these going. When we're looking at the underlying trends, so I'm glad you mentioned that because when we're looking at things like units under construction, we're seeing that's up 2.3% for the month. 24.1% for the year on a year-over-year basis. So there are more and more units under construction just because it's taken so much longer. There are more homes kind of being built. Some are being pushed off a little bit later at a later date. As you mentioned, builders, they're struggling to find labor to really put these homes up. And so that's going to be another issue. We're looking at the classification for a housing start. It just means that ground has been broken. Doesn't mean that there's framing or building material there. So that's just going to be one of those big things where there's a big backlog building up. A lot of builders are just saying, hey, we can't take on any more projects right now.
Yeah, and the way that the developers work, it takes them a while to get that space cleared up, and then those builders sit on those lots waiting for that development to get, it's a long process. It's not like you could just say, I'm going to build a house here right now, today. Exactly. It takes a full year just to get that stuff in the works. So they've been sitting there trying to get as much property as possible, and then it takes them a while to get that stuff going, right?
Exactly right. I mean, and another interesting one, we're looking at housing units completed, down 4.5% for the month, down 13% for the year. So we're looking at, it just feeds into it. There are fewer homes being completed, more starts building up. Permits also increased 0.4% for the month. I think one of the interesting call-outs here that we're looking at over housing starts is that we're talking about a little bit earlier on, I think it was maybe 2 months ago, about expectations for the housing industry. Keeping an eye on non-residential is going to be one of them, of course, but also multifamily units was another one that we called out. Multifamily units now up over 800,000 multifamily units under construction. This is the highest level since the 1970s. And so this is going to be one of those areas where there's going to need to be a lot of building activity just because there needs to be more multifamily units for a lot of those individuals looking for homes. We're looking at the housing market. I think it was a study that just came out not too long ago that around 1 in 5 homes are purchased by institutions or investors. And so there are a lot of investors entering the space here, taking away from first-time potential homeowners.
Yeah, and I've even read about some of those groups starting to try to get involved to kind of remove some of that. But the investors are the ones that are responsible for the multifamily units in general. So especially with housing being so limited, it just makes sense that they would start putting up more of these multifamily. So do you see a continuing demand on that side for a while?
I definitely do, because as we see the limited availability for those homes, one of those things that kind of also counteracts if we're limiting those investors purchasing those homes, fewer homes for individuals to rent. And so once we see more of those multifamily homes come up, it's going to be a little bit alleviating for those renters. Maybe some of those rent prices could slow in their rate of increase. And we could see a little bit more home activity for those looking to actually purchase a home. So I definitely think that there's going to be a lot more activity to be had for multifamily homes as we continue to move throughout 2022 into 2023. But those single-family housing starts, I definitely think as we start to get into those warmer, traditional, busy months, there's going to be a little bit of a slowdown, a little bit of an ease, just because there's been such a pull forward going into effect here.
Yeah, do you see any kind of bubble activity here? Do you think we're going to see a little bit of a hangover in terms of housing demand?
I think there is a big potential there, especially if there is a sudden shift in investor activity, since there is such a significant amount of home ownership through investors, through institutions. Right. If there's a sudden fall off in that, that could be an issue there, because there is a potential that we are overbuilding in a sense, because when we're looking at our aging demographics, we're looking at population demographics, there are a lot of interesting statistics to kind of draw from that. So that's going to be one to watch closely. Right now, I don't think we're in danger of it yet, but there is still that lingering suspicion as we continue to get a little bit closer towards the mid part to the end of the year.
Yeah, if you let the financial sector run wild, they'd build an engine that would go to 220 miles an hour.
Exactly.
And explode.
Exactly.
All right, thank you so much for that, Anthony. We're going to toss to a quick break, but we'll be right back.